Cool. All right. Well, we are on 4 o'clock. I'll keep this punchy because there will be a recording that some will watch after the fact as well. So we'll get moving here. Thank you very much for joining. By way of introduction, my name's Lockie. I'm the product manager here at CivilPro, and I'm everything front-facing. I've dealt with a number of people on this call. And with me today as well is Dennis. He's the brains of the operation, the founder and lead developer of CivilPro. So what we're going to run through very briefly, you may have seen these slides already that I shared in this invite, and they're available afterwards as well in this description, but I'll just go through the slides and add a little bit more context, and then we'll jump into the platform, and I'm going to try and go start to finish on adding plans, registering plans, and then using plans in CivilPro. And then at the end, we'll jump back out to the slides and talk about more of the 3D and the direction that CivilPro is going and why we're doing all of this spatial stuff. So without further ado, I'll share my screen. Dennis, please confirm. Oh, you got your hand up, Dennis.
I was just mentioning, yeah, I'm doing it old school. I was just going to mention you might want to just introduce the Q&A section and chats because I'll be monitoring that while you speak.
As Dennis mentioned, we've got a Q&A function here. Please add questions in there. Dennis, and also Ben, sorry, is in the background as well. He'll be responding to questions as we go through. I believe the comments, questions and answers remains live after the session. All right, can you see my screen? Dennis, that's for you to confirm. Doing your job. Perfect. All right, CivilPro Spatial. Why are we here today? I'm going to give you an introduction to CivilPro Spatial. The first thing we're going to cover is interface changes, and what we're interested in is keeping everything working as usual for your teams out on site. So we want to ensure business continuity. So make sure you're aware of the minor interface changes we've got in CivilPro Web and Desktop with the introduction of CivilPro Spatial tomorrow morning. We'll then look at the new functionality, why we've brought out this functionality so you can do more things in CivilPro and do it in this sort of spatial environment. And then I'll very briefly mention, but we'll come back to it at the end, is the spatial data exports, the 2D and 3D information that we're now natively generating within CivilPro, and what you may be able to do, also what you will be able to do with that on your projects afterwards. And I'll also cover support documentation and where you can find resources to get up and running with CivilPro Spatial. Why? The reason we're bringing construction drawings into CivilPro is they're a very common document that all construction sites have, and it allows you to accurately define your lots in that context of your construction drawings, not on Google Maps, not on another platform and brought into CivilPro, but the construction drawings in CivilPro and spatially accurate. So accurate lot definitions. Once we define our lots or our test requests by a location in space, we can then find those things in space as well. And I'll show you how our find functionality works. Ultimately, once we've done our lot definition on our construction drawings, we can very easily create a lot map within CivilPro and have that included in our reports, that are lot summary reports or our test requests that go out to our testing subbies. We can also create what's called plan snapshots, which is like an active version of a lot map where you can bring up and see various things within that interface and then find further information from that digital lot map or plan snapshot, as we call it. And then because we're defining things in 2D space, we are adding that geometry information to those lots, and that can be leveraged in external spatial viewers. So here's an example of the interface, and this is an example of this in one of the reports. Cool, interface changes. What's going to be different tomorrow? Web users in the call, previously you got to a geometry tab when you were creating your lot. If you were defining your lots by chainage, so if you've uploaded control lines with coordinates and you're defining lots by chainage, you previously saw a window like this where you'd select your control line, you'd define the chainage, and you'd see the lot being created along that control line. Tomorrow you'll see a spatial tab. So if you want to do that same process where you select a control line and then define the from and to chainages, you just click add chainage. You'll see this pop up here, and that is where you select polygon, and we'll say a start and finish chainage with your offsets. So that should be pretty straightforward to follow. If you want to then see your lot on a Google Map interface like this one here, you can click view on map. So they're the primary changes to the interface tomorrow. If you aren't using control line definition at the moment, you can breeze straight on past this spatial tab, no change. For our desktop users, previously you would select chainage and a control line here in the chainage tab. Tomorrow you'll see the spatial tab, very similar. If you want to define your lot by chainage, you'll select this plus icon here, and you'll have this pop up. Again, select your chainage and select from and to. If you are using control lines that do not have coordinates, I'll let you come back to this slide for your own reference, but what we do is we'll select this all control lines. That will show all of the control lines, including ones that don't have coordinates associated with them. And then you'll also have these automatically tick for you. I'm just creating awareness. When you tick this one here as well, CivilPro doesn't then try and define your lot in space because there's no coordinates to substantiate it. But both of these tick boxes are populated. If you've got control lines that don't have coordinates, these will both be ticked automatically, so you can continue to define your control line, and then the chainages, and they're just references. Lots of words on this one, but what it summarizes to is tomorrow the permissions for each of your existing roles will be set up. They'll be migrated across based on what I've got written on the screen here. I won't go into detail, but what the baseline settings is allows you to do everything that you do today, tomorrow in the lot register, for example, for each of your roles. In order to add plans, add construction drawings in, roles will have to be given a permission. So this needs to be managed by your subscription administrators, this plan permission within your roles. In order to add a plan, they'll need to have this add and likely edit as well, so they can edit a plan once it's in there. That we'd purposely given that not allocated that assuming things. We're allowing your team to nominate who should be doing that or which roles to do that. So tomorrow everything will work from a view aspect, but if you want to add the plans in there and then go forth, you'll need to add that plan permission. New functionality. What happens when we put this click this view on plan button? Our construction drawings, we are bringing them into CivilPro, we are giving them spatial references, and what that allows us to do is the construction drawings then get positioned in space, and we can see this sort of long plot effectively that gets automatically generated in CivilPro. Cool, so registering plans, and I'm going to go through this in the platform as well from scratch, but what we do, the typical process, is we'll import our coordinates with local coordinates. Previously, if you've tried to import coordinates into CivilPro Web, you would have had to bring them in latitude and longitude, which required some transformations, which is a bit of a laborious process. Now you can more or less copy those directly from your construction drawings or an output from your surveyors in northings and eastings, import them into CivilPro by just highlighting all of them, chainage, northings and eastings, and dumping them in. And I'll show you what that process looks like a whole lot faster and in local coordinates. Once we've got our control lines imported into CivilPro, we then register our drawings, and that's a matter of importing our PDFs and then nominating 3 known locations on each sheet. That tells CivilPro how to rotate, scale, and position that sheet in actual space. We can do that in 2 ways. One of them is you can click on a known location and paste in the northing and the easting, or if we've imported our control lines, we can click on a known chainage on one of those control lines, select the control line and select the corresponding chainage, and the coordinates will automatically apply from when we imported our control lines. I'll show you what that looks like shortly. And shortly as well, we will be doing, and Dennis can probably elaborate on this, but 2 registration points. We can do 2 registration points as well. So if you've got a straight line and you put in 3 points, CivilPro will automatically take 2 of those points and it will give you a note. We can raise that later, and that's in the documentation as well. But 3 points is desirable, and then the other thing we've got around the boundary here is the perimeter, and that defines where the content of the drawing is. And bad example on the screen here, but we'd exclude things like our notes, our title block at the bottom, for example. We just want to show the area in which we want to define lots and how with the contents of the drawing that we want to show in CivilPro in the maps interface. Cool, very quickly, here's the interface when you are marking up your lots. Here we can add our geometries, we can add a line, we can add a point, we can add multiple geometries to a single lot. Say you've got 3 light posts that you want to include in a light post lot along with the conduit, for example. You can add all of those into a single lot as separate geometries. You can add additional geometries as well to a lot, and you can see those down here. Also down here you can see is a very accurate area calculation that's done on the fly as well. That may be useful for defining the full extents of your lots. You'll see this export button here as well. This is where you can export that 2D information from a single lot, but it may be more advantageous to export this from sort of an API level. where you can export bulk. I mentioned search on plans. Because our lots are defined in 2D space, we can then use this find button here. So we'd click find, we can define an area, or we can search in the visible area, or we can search on the sheet. And then we define some filters that we want that search to perform. And then we click search and it'll show everything that corresponds to that search. So here we could search for photos in a location, for example, and it'll show all the photos, or we can find all of the subgrade lots that Thomas did, for example, and it would show all of those in there. And then we can use that data as well shortly. We've got an improved maps viewer as well that's very easily accessible. In the maps viewer, you'll see the same lot geometries that you defined on your plans. An important note here is you define your lots, they're effectively a layer above the underlying construction drawings. So in this instance here, we've got those same lots, but the underlying is the web maps, the Google Maps interface. Same if you've got a new construction drawing set that comes out, you bring that in, you register it, those lots will still appear perfectly above that new drawing set. The lots aren't defined hard copy onto the actual construction drawings, and that allows us to sub in different layers underneath. Also, what you can see in this view here, and I'll show you in the platform, is we can pull in georeferenced imagery. If you've got drone imagery, for example, in the background, you've already got this Google Maps interface that you can turn on and off, but you can also then turn on these sort of a long plot looking layout of your construction drawings along the alignment as well. Same features in the view on map functionality. Cool, create plan snapshots. So when we have got our lot, say we want to create a lot map, for example, we can show our lot in there. We might want to see show also some test locations, or we might have some adjacent lots that we also want to show on our lot map in a different color, for example. We can create a plan snapshot. What that does, it creates an image, which we're seeing on the left-hand side here, and that will be included in your reports. And it also creates this interactive image. So in here, I can see all the same things over here, but I can also see each of the individual artifacts, and I can link those to that plan snapshot so that I can then go and interrogate those afterwards and find related items associated, say, with each of those. Cool, same thing when we're creating our snapshots, we'll pull in everything that we want to see on that snapshot. We'll save it as a snapshot, and when we save it, it'll save into the related items associated with that lot. So you can very quickly click on that and get right back into the plan snapshot. From there, we can save it as a report default, and that means it'll be included in our lot summary report as that lot map, for example, as we can see down here. Spatial data exports. I'll get back to this shortly, but the purpose of us creating this 2D lot information is so that we can ultimately create these 3D how constructed models, we're calling them. I'm going to leave that as a taster. We'll come back to this at the end. Cool. The support that's provided, obviously these slides are linked in the meeting invite here. We've also got new written guides in our help center, so please search for those. They're both for desktop and for web app. I'll be continuing to output more worked example videos of how to leverage this new functionality, and sporadically we'll be using these new in-app pop-ups that show new functionality, use cases, any more guides, and maybe future webinars and things like this going forward. There is, if you would like to have targeted training with your teams to set these, to get this working right, we can do that as a service as well. We'll get a quote to you, and also if you'd like us to import your drawings so you don't have to worry about doing that, we can also quote that up as well, so please get in touch. Cool, all right, that's the slides. Let me jump into the platform and try and do this on the fly. Any questions in the question thing that we need to address now, Dennis, or should we keep working through?
No, we've been light on in the questions. The only comments in there are from me, and they're not that interesting.
Fantastic. All right, here is CivilPro. If you haven't seen this, you're probably in the wrong call, but this is our web application. Sorry, if you use desktop, you may not have seen this interface. So what you'll see tomorrow is this new section here called Spatial, and included in there is our snapshots and our plans. I'm just going to go through start to finish how we get our construction drawings into CivilPro. So the first thing we need to set up is called our coordinate systems. Again, this is all covered in the guides. On your construction drawings in the title block, it will likely show a code similar to this, the local coordinate system in the zone that you are in. For this project that I'll be demonstrating, it's zone 54. So you can click here, load from default, and it's got a whole lot of typical Australian coordinate systems in there. You'll have one likely probably 100% for your project. So you select that once and then that's done. The next thing we'll do is import our control line. So it's in the same place as we've done previously. We just click here, new control lines. Now, control line data, I'll jump into this here. Here on this construction drawing set that I've got, we've got the control line set out information. It's a sheet within your drawings. You may have coordinates that are shown at every chainage along a control line, which is fantastic. Or you may ask your surveyors to output a coordinates for a control line in the columns of chainage, easting and northing, so we can copy it into CivilPro. A quick hack to get this into CSV, so we can copy and paste into CivilPro. I can just screenshot this whole thing and chuck it into ChatGPT or Gemini and say, please convert to CSV. Do one table at a time, and it's very accurate at OCR. So that is a way in which you can get this PDF data into digital data. Another way that you can do it from the likes of Adobe is you can export to a CSV, and you might get something similar to this here, which again has all this information ready for me to highlight and import into CivilPro. So I'll create a control line and then I'll go and register a plan. So MC, I'll call it test so I don't stuff anything up. Cool, created a control line. Now we right click and go import coordinates. Here we state that local coordinate system. Again, you should probably just have one in your project so you don't accidentally click the Melbourne one down here. Oh, sorry, the Far East one. Cool, now before I click import from clipboard, I'm just going to highlight my coordinates. So for this one control line that I'm importing, I'm just going to highlight these coordinates. And note these are in the local coordinate system, not latitude and longitude, which is much easier. Import from clipboard. If you've got the titles, chainage, easting and northing, they'll automatically assign in here and we are away laughing. Cool. Now, because I've imported this control line, in this instance, each of these from the setup, they're only at each of the, say, intersection points or the start and finish of a curve. So when I right click and show this on a map, it'll be quite chunky. Here we go. So there's bits cut out, for example. I can then, once we've registered our plans after this, I can then come back to this control line and make it a nice and smooth curve by dragging each of the points and adding further vertexes in there. So don't worry about it at the moment. We're just going to leverage each of these points for registering our drawings. Control line in. Now, plans. I've already got a section in here. What I'm also going to demonstrate now is if we have a second drawing set that we want to import, for example. So I've got an original drawing set there. I'm going to call this one plan name General. Reference system, same one again. And IFC, what's the date today? 10th of the 3rd. Here I click plus. I'm just going to drag a drawing set in. General arrangement. Whoop. Done. Save. Cool. Drawings are now in CivilPro under this one here called General. Now, if I click on these, I won't see anything because nothing has been registered yet. The next step that we do once we've imported it is we right click and click Configure Plan. I'm going to make this full screen to give me a bit of real estate. Now, I am in a bungalow in Byron Bay with terrible Wi-Fi, so if it's a little bit slow, please excuse me. It will be much faster on your end. Right, so what I'm going to do now to register this drawing is I'm going to zoom to 300%. On here, there's two ways that we can register this drawing, and I've got to put 3 points on this sheet in order to register this drawing. First way to do it is if I click Configure, Add Registration Point. For this location here, 65,400, or that chainage, I know that I've got the coordinates for that point, so I will zoom in, and I implore you to zoom in more than I have. Actually, I'll go and set a good example here. I'm going to go zoom in. The more accurate you can be when you click these registration points, the better the output is going to be. So if I click here on 400, if I have got the corresponding easting and northing for this 400 point here, I can paste those values in. However, if I know the control line and I've imported those coordinates, I can select this here, and I'm actually not sure that there is a 450, 400. Let me just do the point next to it. So you can, I know that I've got 360 in that original set that I uploaded, so let me just quickly pop in 360, 1. Select the control line, select here 360. It's automatically pulled in those coordinates from that control line I uploaded. Perfect. So now go to the next one here, 450. I know that I've got coordinates for that. So I'm going to click on there. It's already got that one selected. So this is 450. Click, coordinates are in, save. Now I'm going to go, now we want to try and spread out these points as best possible. That makes it as accurate as possible when importing to CivilPro. Cool, 65550. Here's hoping I've got this one in here. Geez, clockwork, perfect. Right, now that I have added those 3 points, the next thing I've got to do is define the perimeter that I want to have visible of this drawing. So I've just zoomed back out there, and I'm going to go into configure, add perimeter. I'm going to make this a little bit coarse for the interest of time, but you can always edit this afterwards. And what we want to do is run just along the join lines. Cool, that's slightly terrible, but that'll have to do. Now it will tell us the registration is complete. We do want to click save here so that it records everything in there, and then I'll move on. I won't do it now, but I'll do the registration for that next page as well. So that is the registration process. If I don't like that drawing is cut off on the side, I can click it, click delete, click on that point, and then make it nice and square. Cool, save and close. All right, so that plan is now registered in CivilPro. It's rotated, scaled, and ready for us to use. So let's create some lots. Same process. I'm going to call this one subbase. Same, if you're using the duplicate lot functionality, that will work as expected in here as well. Cool, here's a new tab. So 2 ways that I can define a lot. One of them, chainage extent, which I'll do first. So here, I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to say my lot is from 65400. It's a 13 meter wide road with a slight offset. 65450. -5, 8. Cool. All right, so now we have defined our lot, change X to change Y. What CivilPro has also done is it's created a 2D geometry that replicates that on our plan. So to see that, I can click here, view on plan. Here is the selector for which drawing set I want to show my lot on. If you've only got one drawing set in there, perfect, it will just go straight to it. If you've got 2 drawing sets in there, you might have 2 disciplines, for example, you can show those lots on either disciplines. If one of the drawing sets is more zoomed in than the other, CivilPro will recognize that because you've registered it, and it will show everything correctly proportional as well. But I'm just going to go into this original drawing set here and make that large as well. The first time it downloads the drawing, it caches it locally, and then going forward, it should be faster when it loads in. Cool, so where is my, cool, you can see I've got my lot has been automatically created here. That might be sufficient, I can leave it as is. If I want to add an additional extent or modify that, I can click on it, I can click edit, and I can modify any of those points to make it look nicer. Or, I'll cancel that. If I want to, leave it as is. If I want to create another lot, for example, I can click add polygon, and draw an offset lot for no apparent reason. Here I've got the option to say additional offset subbase, perfect. And we'll see in the bottom right hand corner here, we've got the 2 geometries associated with the slot. The main one that was generated from the control line, and then we've got this additional geometry here, and both of them will sum up to the area for this lot. I'm going to update and close. What we can also show in here is things like control lines. If you need another reference, I appreciate they're already on the drawing. If we want to define our lot based on a different lot, an adjacent lot, for example, I can I can search by an area, but I'll find on this current page, click lot. I'm going to have a punt here and see if there is any subbase lots on this drawing. Subbase, okay, search. Cool, there's a whole lot of other stuff. I can then use snaps associated with those to define my lot immediately adjacent, for example. If I want to get rid of all of those additional ones there, I can select all, undo the one that I'm creating, and go up here and say remove selected entities from list just to clean it up. Right, update and close. Cool. All right, if I want to show that on my Google map, I can click that view, and here we can see that same lot on Google Maps. And here is where I can turn on the drawings. So I can show those drawings. I can make them go darker, lighter. We do encourage you to use the Google Maps interface as more of a viewer. For accuracy, please define your lots on the actual plans. Cool, but yeah, and here I've got a number of adjustments where I can make the maps go away and I can make the drawings go brighter. If I had some aerials in here, I can turn those on and off as well, and we'll use those in our plan snapshots shortly. Cool, update and close, but the purpose of getting this thing moving, we have now created a lot, and we can see that up the top here. If I right click on that lot, or I can select multiple lots, I can then click view on plan. Again, if we had one drawing set in there, it would show straight away. But here we can see that lot in context here. Cool. If I right clicked view on map, it would show that as well. Right, I'm going to quickly go through what creating a test request looks like. Cool, from me to someone else, that person. Next. So natively, it inherits the lot geometry inherits the lot geometry. If I want to refine that for whatever reason, if I want to refine the test location, for example, I could modify that geometry that is now associated with the test request and just tweak it. We might have just a single soft spot or something that's slightly offset. I'll just move it like that, for example, but you might put a point to replace the geometry with a point, for example. Click done. Okay, outline close. Next, let me just quickly add a test. That one test. Next. Now you'll see a pop-up that comes up. Oh, gracious. Sorry, I've stuffed that up by adjusting that geometry. And in a bid to save face, I'm going to show you exactly how the test requests work without me doing any funny stuff. So here we go, right click, new test request. That is going to this person. Next. Add a test. This one for an example. 2 tests. If you haven't learned about add tests from ITP, have a look at that. That's where we can pull all your tests from your specific checklist item in an ITP and automatically populate all of the samples. Have a look on the help center for that. So I've now gone through without any errors. Now I'm going to show what I'm going to send to my testing subby. I can select on plan. To keep it nice and easy, I'm going to keep that as the result that is going to go to my testing subby and click create snapshot and then click save. That has now created that snapshot that's going to be in the report that goes out to the testing subby. And then after that is created, you get the same notification. Do you want to notify the tester? Cool, so we've now done that test. Now the next thing that's important for each of you is the lot map. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to create that lot map. View on plan. Here, without changing anything, again, well, this one's more stable here, but if I click create snapshot, lot map, done the same mistake, save. It's creating that lot map extent. Any questions, please fire them into the chat as well. We can now see that here, and when I create my conformance report, we can see it is included in the report. So sorry, when I adjusted the geometry of that individual test request before, it caused an error. So just continue as you were, but we'll look into why the error occurred. But that is the workflow. The final thing I'll end on is with these plan snapshots, if you end up with a whole lot of them and you want to start deleting them, you can right click and show in the snapshot register. Here is where you can delete that plan snapshot. And wherever that plan snapshot is linked to, it'll disappear from the plan snapshots and those related items. Cool. All right, so for those in desktop as well, I won't go through all of the same processes, but here you've got the spatial tab up the top. If I am in a lot and I'm defining things for that lot, you'll see you've got this spatial tab here. If you want to define a lot by chainage, you'll click this button. If you want to define geometries on a map, you'll click this button and it'll bring up that same map interface. Everything else is just in a slightly different place. All of the guides will show you exactly where you need to be, but it works the same as what we've demonstrated in web app. All right, I might throw back now to Dennis to quickly give a rundown of the 2D going to 3D that we've got here.
All right, well, that probably means that camera, righto. So the reason that we're working with the 2D stuff is obviously there's a lot of 2D information, especially that's relevant to QA. But increasingly that's extending into 3D, specifically with a lot of clients moving into this requiring conformance data to be incorporated into the handover models. So the way that I think most people are addressing this at the moment is by trying to fudge their construction models, their ASCON models, and subdivide them down into smaller components, and to manually bring, and sometimes semi-automatedly, bring that conformance data into the model by making subdivisions of model objects. Where this gets really, I guess, difficult is most ASCON models aren't really designed to take compliance data. Like, I mean, the finished road surface may just be literally a surface. You know, you don't usually, when you hand over a model, have things like a model entity that describes a shape that's, you know, like your 2.1 sub base sitting under your 40 mil of AC with a base, AC base, sub base, subgrade, or whatever. You don't usually get those sort of entities. And if you did have those sort of entities, they definitely wouldn't be subdivided into the extensive lots. And if you've got something like a big median barrier, it's not going to reflect the actual lot structure that went into building that. It's probably 35, 40 different lots, and you don't have that data in an ASCON. So you're either subdividing it down, and to do that, you've got to know where the lot extents are, and then you've got to associate all that data. And like TMR's got some clunky Excel upload thing they do. It's quite a mess. So the way we're looking at this instead is, what happens if we can procedurally generate that data from the QA data? And the first step to that is obviously having some form of 2D layout, which is what we're introducing with this release. And what we're moving to next is the 3D component. I'll explain a bit about how we do that. So we call this the how constructed model because it provides more resolution than the ASCON model. It's got a completely different purpose. So if you think about what data comes through in the compliance data, we not only know now where it is with the 2D, but we also have the dates about when lots were started, when the dates when the work started, when it finished, when it was conformed. So with that, we can actually create a generative model that contains time information as well. So it actually becomes a 4D model, not just a 3D model. So the trick is in, though, how do we get this third dimension? So we've got dimensions 1, 2, and 4, but we need this elevation data. And we can do that in CivilPro in a couple of ways. One of which is we can specify. So if you've got pits and pipes, it's relatively straightforward to provide an RL at the ends of those, just the same way as we specify 2D data. If we're talking about something like a subgrade or a pavement, well, that's a lot more complicated. So the way that we're working with this in CivilPro is in 3D in the betas, and I'll show you an example of those shortly, is that we allow you to provide a tin surface, which may come from a drone flyover. It might be your ASCON finished surface. It could be a survey pickup. It can be anything as long as it comes in the tin. And if you have a look at what Lockie's got those there in those animations, what we end up doing is just dropping the 2D shape through it as a cookie cutter. Now, it's not a perfect example of what it is, but what we're trying to do here is indicative models. So if you're trying to find compliance data, you're not necessarily interested in all the minutiae of what the actual survey pickup points are and whether they're intolerance or whatever. What you're trying to track down is where is all the metadata behind it. So things like a block model are far more useful for this, and they require far less storage space. So the way we're going about this, and I'll just do a screen share. I'll get rid of everything incriminating on my screen before I do. So this is actually and it is just a block model, but it's because we're working with our alpha. We're not even in beta for this yet. But what we're doing is we're generating this on the fly. There has been no input into this other than CivilPro data and a surface to define where this pavement shape we've got here is. So that's a collection of all these different pavement objects. We've got just a little pipe here and a pit at each end. And the way we generated this is in the 3D version we're working on at the moment. In addition to the stuff you've got in the release that's coming out tomorrow, we've got things called models, element sets, profiles, and styles. So a model, you have as many as you like. You might have a different model just to do your pipes and your pits and whatever. And in that, it's as simple as for each lot, defining the element set that describes how it's generated and then generating the model. And that element set here, you can see we've got 4 different element sets. The lighting structure is actually a dummy. I haven't got that far yet. But the other 3 are defined in here in my element sets. And if we have a look at what one of these, let's look at a sub-base pavement. So this is defined from one single tin surface and just a height to a 3D solid. I'm using this surface here for this particular one, calculations of this height from the surface. It's 140 mil and it's offset 165 mil from the finished surface. So with just one surface, I can actually describe all my pavement layers and create those from the 2D geometries, finished surface tin, offset height, and I can create a block model from that contains all the metadata from the lot automatically and generated in the IFC. And that's how we output these. Everything is an IFC, no proprietary formats or anything, so you can import it into whatever you want. If we look at something like how that pipe was generated, it was, and this is the actual data for generating that model I showed you before. It's generated using a shape, which was, it's just basically a ring with a wall thickness. I anchor it to the bottom and I extrude the shape along the path, which means that that pipe is just defined as a polyline. And then a pit, the pit's defined as a point, and I extrude it vertically from a point, 1.1 metre, and I can apply a rotation to it if I want to bring it into alignment if that matters for your purpose. So what you're going to end up with is an IFC model, which is a simple model of what you can make it as complex as you want, by the way. If your tins have got, points every 10 metres, then, that'll come through too, if you don't simplify it. I don't recommend that that's a great way to do these sort of models, but you can if you want. So the last piece of the puzzle, which we're working on now, is links to existing models. So the way that works, some of you are already doing something kind of similar with custom registers where you just put a UID from the model in and link that to your lot. Well, what we're going to be doing is making that a first-class citizen of CivilPro, so you can import a model, and what we'll do is strip the UIDs and the descriptions from the IFC file and store them in the database, and we'll stick the file on a server so that we can reference it later. That'll become apparent why. So what we do is allow you to reference one or more of these elements from a model, and then when we build our procedural model, we just go in and we look at that original IFC, find its components by UID. We append all of our metadata to do with the compliance to it, and we incorporate it in the new model. So you end up with this 3D model that comes with several different ways of procedurally generating. That's obviously the first one, when you create from an existing model item, where we're just basically pilfering the definition from an existing model, amending with all the conformance data and outputting it. The second one is the surface extrusion, where we just cookie cut through a surface. The third one is when we extrude along a polyline with a shape. And the fourth one is when we just drop a shape around a point. So yeah, that's the intent. And yeah, we've made some pretty decent progress on it, and we're just working on the final bits now. Hope to have some kind of alpha program going by mid-April, and you should see it early in the second half of the year with luck.
We'll leave it there. Thank you for spending the time here. As mentioned, all of the guides and support documents are on the Help Centre, but we're interested in seeing your use cases that you come up with this new functionality, and we look forward to working with you. So we'll leave you with that. Thanks all. Now, you might have to fire in, let me just see if I can open the floor. Controls, here we go. Allow, yeah, you can unmute yourselves as of now, noting you're being recorded. If you've got a question and you want to fire it in, please go for it. Saw a few hands.
Farshad.
If you, I think you should be able to unmute yourselves.
Can you hear me? No?
You can.
Yes, we got you, Farshad.
Okay, good. Thank you. Very, very interesting features. Thanks for your good job. One question I'm a bit, I couldn't get it properly maybe. So when we define one time the screenshot and the location for the lot map, is that gonna to be an attribute for a lot? What I mean is that, do I need again for other raising a whole point, if I'm, for example, pouring a pit, and if I need the same in an approval request, can I use the same? Is that something that can be, it will be perfect if it just gets provided with a feature that we can just link it to all the approvals, etc. So
Yep.
This way we can just make it more, visible to others,
Yeah.
what we are doing.
So the way that works, Farshad, like you could just show the related items on the lot. So when you take a snapshot, any lots or TRs that are included, or photos for that matter, that are included on the snapshots can be included as a reference. So what it means is for that lot or TR or whatever, it'll end up as a record in the plan and map snapshots up the top there. So the currently the places that plan snapshot will be shown is in the conformance report or the test request report. So if users have other uses for them, once people have got their head around it a little bit and kind of figured out where they want to see this other data utilised, we're more than happy to talk about it. But at the moment where you'll see that is in any associated records that you've made, it'll appear in the related items, and you'll also see it on the reports.
Just to add to that as well, it acts, when I click on it here, it acts as that image, as I mentioned. But if I want to see that, say, along the entire chainage on Google Maps to see where that test request was along my project, for example, I can see it in that Maps interface. Or when I right-click on the side there, I can say View on Plans to see it on that construction drawing. So you may want to find or add image layers of aerial imagery where a test location was, for example, and then save that snapshot for later. You can create a new snapshot, and then you can link that to a lot, for example, or just have it sitting within this test request. So once you create those snapshots, you can then link entities in which you want to see that snapshot appear in their related items.
Thank you.
Cool. Were there any other questions from the floor? Feel free to unmute yourselves.
Hi, it's cool. Liam here. Which items can we actually, what's the list of items that we can associate on there? Obviously we've got the lots, we've got the test requests, and what else can we add?
Right now, you've got test requests, lots, and photos. There's another thing you'll see, and we pull the photo data from the EXIF. Now, we've been storing EXIF data from photos for about 6 months. So anything prior to that, you may not have the EXIF data, but anything from the last 6 or so months will have EXIF data, and you will be able to see it. We'll be able to add it to a snapshot or search to find out where photos are on a plan. There's another element you can see there at the entity type up the top called feature. Now that's not implemented yet, but the intent with that is to just be able to make ad hoc positions and call them whatever you want. So if you had something sundry like you wanted a landmark or something on your plans, then you could add that.
Annotations effectively in space.
Yeah, so that's where we are at the moment with the lots, the TRs, and the photos.
Excellent, thanks.
Cool. Any further questions, examples? Farshad, have you got another one there?
Yes, sorry. The next one is that I want us to see that, you know, that for different the design drawings has got different disciplines. I want to see that how we can define, you know, what we are doing these days. We are asking people, for example, in manually, just to get one of the drawings, for example, drainage drawings, and what is the lot codes associated with drainage. We are asking them to mark on the same group of the drawing. So it means that all on a master, to end up with a drawing that has got all the drainage, and this way we can just put it back and forth, see what we are missing, what we haven't claimed or something. So I want to see that, is that something that we can just by defining or giving an extension to a drawing name digitally, just to make sure that all people for a specific lot code are required to use that drawing?
Not at the moment. So that's an association, sorry, of the work type with a drawing set by default, isn't it? So if you are opening a drawing, a lot that is a drainage work type, it would open the corresponding drainage set automatically, ideally. That's the question, isn't it, Farshad?
Yes, yes.
So where we are with that, we had a brief discussion of this in the conversation, Farshad, is that you can have multiple plans. So you can have a drainage plan, you can have an earthworks plan, and when you create the geometry, it really doesn't matter what plan you mark it up on. You can, so the user can select whatever the most appropriate plan is for them to mark it up, because the coordinates are stored independently. And if everyone's defined them on a general arrangement, for example, and later you decide you want to put it on a drainage plan, just register a drainage plan and you will be able to see exactly those same lots on the drainage plan, because it's just the geometries. It really doesn't matter where you define it. It's completely agnostic. When you take a snapshot, so you could even take a snapshot later and attach it to all those lots with all that context in it.
Oh, yes, I understand it. Yes, that's good. And then just, no, that's very good feature. So it means that it is just overlaying something that it's building on any drawings that we decide now or in future. That's good. That's good. Totally. And then, to have a bit of a consistency, to make sure that everyone, the lot maps are on the same drawings, we cannot do something system. We need just to tell them that, for example, use these specific drawings when you are managing these lots, for example.
Yeah, but I mean, the question is, it doesn't. I mean, the point is, it doesn't really matter unless you're trying to control how the snapshot is shown, because like the geometry data is independent. The only time it's going to the only time you're actually going to lock anything is if you create a snapshot of it, and even that, it's only for the visualization purpose for that particular snapshot. I mean, conceptually, yes, we can make associations between work types and a plan. And it's definitely, like if you're using it and it's a general consensus is something useful to do, then yeah, by all means, it's something we'll definitely have a look at.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, any further questions?
Yeah,
queries?
Dennis, it's Seb, if you can hear me.
Yep.
Hey, just on your information between going from the lot system, the 2D information onto 3D models.
Yep.
Has anyone, or have you seen where projects may have used parent lots to group a whole heap of sublots, whether it be kilometres of slip-form barrier or whatever the assets are, so that in the 3D model it gives like a dummy parent lot, which then associates, whether it is 20 or 30 sublots that are back in the QA system, like that might live on Teambyte or might live in CivilPro?
Yeah, I haven't personally seen records, but I can imagine people are doing it. It's quite a hack, though. Like, I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose.
I know.
it'd be much better if we just procedurally generated the model, you know. So we've had a bit, we've had a bit of interest from some people that are working with TMR on this. So I guess our next step's going to be just the advocate step, where we make it a lot easier for everybody. Because what we think is the logical solution to this is just having another model, because we've already got several things in the federated model. You start with the design model, you've got an as constructed model. There's all sorts of different models that you pull in.
Yeah.
Why not just have a QA model, which stores all the stuff in a way that's easy to find in a small, simple model? And I think that's the answer. But, even if that's not where we get to in the end, having everything geo-referenced in a 3D simplified model and being able to intersect that with the ASCON model, for example, once you've got everything positioned spatially, being able to associate things is just a mathematical equation. It's really quite simple to do.
Yeah.
Dennis, I'm not sure if you... Oh, sorry. Carry on, Sid.
No, it's fine. All good. Thanks for that.
Dennis, sorry, did you mention as well we can link to IFC components from models as well?
Yes.
Sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That was one of the four. So yeah.
Mapping.
No, that's all right, mate. You're busy figuring out what that issue was. And the good news is Mike's tracked it down, and it's just something associated with our freaking QA environment, not our deployment, which is nice to know.
Cool. Anyone else want to take the floor? Any questions? Sweet as. All right. Well, thank you again for your attendance. Records or references are in this meeting invite, but yeah, please get in touch as well if your users are getting issues, red toast popping up at the bottom of their screens. If they go to Civil Help Center, civilpro.com, and then there's a help center there, you can submit a ticket. They'll come straight to the devs, and we're going to be very hot on this. Anything that's coming up as this rolls out. So please encourage them to get in touch, or get in touch with me if you can't find that help center. But thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, everyone.